doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
Bring in my first guest, Ivan Raiklin. My friend, how are you, Ivan? I can't hear you, bro.
Doing excellent.
There you
I like the
go.
intro. Very aggressive.
So you know what?
The way I like it.
I feel like I'm having flashbacks, man. You know, back with all these developments happening, you know, the deep state panicking, a lot of good stuff, some fights here and there. I'm having like flashbacks to my JSOC days, you know, Cowboy 2-6 fire mission, troops in the open, danger close, let's go. You know, it feels like that kind of troops in contact feeling. What say you?
No, absolutely. We have troops in contact. We have some folks that are in captivity, such as Tina Peters, the name of my name here on the show here.
Yeah.
Who are in? Which troops are in contact? We got Alex Jones and the InfoWars team. One has been murdered, slaughtered brutally. Another one has been swatted twice. Alex Jones is on the hit list. At the end of the day, when this administration moves from kind of settling in, so, we've upgraded, right? We went from the domestic terrorist left, which they need to be, the Democrat Party needs to be designated as a domestic terrorist organization, just hands down. I'm not sure if anybody else is calling on that. I'm definitely calling on that. And the reason being is that they were the ones that promulgated and were involved in Nuremberg code violating injections and jabs that murdered tens of thousands. They were the ones behind supporting the mutilation of children, lopping off penises, slapping on vaginas, vice versa. They were the ones that were advocating the mass murder, slaughter, genocide of children in the womb, right? So that meets all the definitions and beyond of a genocidal organization, right? And so I think at this point, they need to be dealt as such. So we have troops in contact. It's time to transition from being on defense now that, some folks that actually have courage have wield positions of influence, authority, and power. Namely, I like to say Tom Homan exhibits the necessary courage and will. He's not a beta cuck like some of the folks that are populating the administration. And there's two options for them at this point. They either grow a pair and participate in the demise of the domestic terrorist organizations in the United States, and then beyond, once we take a little bit of foothold on the home front, globally. And then if they fail to participate in that, then I think they need to find other opportunities elsewhere. And I think it's incumbent on us men that have a platform to call them out by name. It doesn't matter what political party you fall on. I don't discriminate. Actually, let me correct that. I only discriminate against cowardice, weakness, and low IQ supremacists. Okay. That's where I deliberately discriminate.
So a point is, we've had a lot of progress in some areas and a stunning, obvious visual, you can see it, lack of progress in other areas. So did I say that right? Progress in some areas, lack of progress in other areas that you can see.
Massive progress in pausing the weaponization that has occurred over the last 4 years. Pausing the weaponization, right?
Right.
Well, but not fully stopping it. So I would argue to say that at this point, pausing in many regards, but not all. We just made a couple examples of it, right? Alec, the biggest voice in the United States, I argue at this point, is Alex Jones. Because, Joe Rogan has his show, Tucker Carlson has his show, but they're not constantly churning out content 24/7. And then Elon Musk's platform is now the number one news source in pretty much in every major Anglophone jurisdiction on the planet, right?
Well, everywhere.
And so who's the biggest content creator that has the biggest reach on those platforms? Obviously it's Elon himself, but then after that, I would argue it's Alex Jones. And that is why he's target numero uno, because when you expose the domestic terrorists for what they've done and the population no longer supports them, Counterterrorism strategy 101, L. Todd Wood.
Yeah.
When
You
you
know, I
lose
got
the
sent.
people, you
Yeah,
have no legitimacy.
I got sent a meme. It said "Gulf of no one's been arrested yet." Really,
Yeah.
you know,
I think you
I
sent me that.
really like
Somebody
that.
sent me that, and I posted it up. And I said, time's ticking. I mean, the honeymoon has been over for, arguably January 20th is when the honeymoon started, right?
Yeah,
So 30 days into that would put us in, February 20th. But then you could argue, the beta cucks can say, well, the cabinet wasn't formed until a few weeks ago. Okay, let's use that as the benchmark. 30 days after the full cabinet has been in power, that's going to be in the next few days. So the honeymoon is going to be fully over. And if there are no results, such as I argue, the standard is at a minimum what they did illegally, unlawfully, without predicate. So they set a precedent where there was no legal predicate to do so. But we have the legal predicate, the legal, moral, and ethical obligation to do at a minimum what they did. And what I mean by that is by this time, there were over 50 swatting raid arrests of peaceful, unarmed election justice rally attendees on January 6th. And there were two murders, definitely, two negligent homicides potentially
right.
of unarmed, peaceful election justice rally attendees that were calling out the illegal 2020 election and the electoral heist, okay, by the domestic terrorist Democrats. So what has this administration done against Adam Schiff,
Exactly.
Jamie Raskin, Nancy Pelosi, Thomas Manger, U.S. Capitol Police Chief, the General Counsel of the Capitol Police, Tad DeBias. Let's expand it a little bit further from the legislative branch. Let's look at some folks in the executive branch. John Brennan, Jim Comey, and so on and so forth. I mean, I have 1,400 people that need to be actioned. So if they want to create their lists based on just political, I should say this. They created their list of people that are trying to stop this administration from continuing the money laundering scheme through Ukraine.
Yes.
The Congress, Republican and Democrats, actually Republicans over the last 2+ years have been the ones behind funding the money laundering scheme. Remember, Kevin McCarthy for 9 months, then Mike Johnson for 15 months.
He went into the skiff.
And now Mike Johnson for another 2 months, right?
Yeah.
So 17 months now, Mike Johnson, and 9 months of Kevin McCarthy. The Republicans have been the ones that have been funding Ukraine so that Ukraine then takes 40 to 60% of that and puts it into their own pockets, meaning Zelensky and company. And then some of that then goes back 10% to the big guy. And then 1 or 2 percentage points goes back into Kevin McCarthy's own PACs and Mitch McConnell's own PACs, while the others that's from via the number 2 guy at FTX. And then the number 1 guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, who's hired an agency to get a pardon from Trump. He's the one funding Chucky Boy Schumer PAC.
Well,
remember?
It's all done also through the Act Blue
and Nancy Pelosi PAC.
Yeah. So Ivan,
let me respond this way, and then I'll kind of open up. But
yeah,
when Chucky Boy Schumer says we have the intelligence community has 6 ways from Sunday getting back at you to Rachel Madcow a couple years back, well, guess what? It works both ways, bud.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody like L. Todd Wood and Ivan Raiklin and others that are more prominent than me have now the levers of the intel community at our side and understand it very well. It is now our turn in the most transparent, live streamed manner possible to go ahead and create consequences. And if this administration wants to participate, we welcome that. If they don't, we'll have to come up with unconventional, creative ways in order to create the necessary accountability. And that's kind of, I make the assumption that the will not be there. And so that's why it is incumbent on us to mobilize at the grassroots, county, district, state level, so that when all those individuals are mobilized and this administration fails to do what the mandate was given to them to do, meaning maximum accountability to include, where appropriate, capital punishment for treason, then I guess the state and county level institutions must be motivated to do that.
Ivan, hold it right there. We're going to take a break. When they come back, we got a lot to talk about. So be right back.
Special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
So, Ivan, we had a good event down in Mar-a-Lago, but I didn't get to sit and talk with you about a few issues. It's kind of very busy the whole evening. But you've talked about accountability, which I completely agree with. That's phase one. But operationally, over in Eastern Europe, you've got Putin in his uniform saying that, all the mercenaries in Kursk that the regime sent in are going to be treated as terrorists. You got Zelensky just saying, oh, that's really not happening. You got Witkoff in Moscow. What say you? How do you think this is going to play out in Eastern Europe and in this whole ceasefire arrangement, if you have any insight on that?
I mean, it could play out different ways. I mean, a lot of it depends on what Elon Musk, as the most influential figure on the planet, ends up, I guess, articulating to his 220 million person audience, right? Mm-hmm. And many of those being critical thinkers and influencers. Best case scenario is, from my perspective, just kind of spitballing it here, is that when Doge uncovers not only USAID corruption, fraud, waste, and abuse, and then does the same thing over at the Defense Department, mm-hmm. in terms of where the money flows are going with the Ukraine funding, as well as does a kind of a very invasive forensic audit of CIA funding mechanisms, and then puts that together, hopefully in short order here in the next few days to weeks, and publishes a summary of what that is, you're going to see a lot more members of Congress announcing their retirement in order to flee from accountability. And we're already seeing breadcrumbs of that. I think the senator in New Hampshire, yes. The senator in Minnesota, and I believe, was it Michigan?
I don't know.
Two swing states. And so that is going to be the catalyst to stop the money flows that fund the leverage that Ukraine and the Democrats have. Because you got to remember that the legacy, here's what's, from my perspective, is going on. Yeah. The assassination attempts are only going to increase because their money stream is being stopped. Okay. And so the Democrats are going to, domestic Democrats are going to help kind of coordinate with foreign influencers that they've developed relationships with, meaning the Biden criminal syndicate is deeply entrenched in Ukraine. Let me give you a few examples. Remember the disinformation diva? That wanted to run the DHS's Disinformation Governance Board, right. Nina Yankowicz. Yeah. She was at Zelensky campaign headquarters when he was running for president. Interesting. She's a registered foreign agent, right? And you can look up our foreign agent registration file. She's got a couple of instances of that. Who else? I mean, you have the Brennan.
Well, you have the
Bidens of the world, right? And so they're facilitating the money laundering scheme under the guise of foreign aid. Foreign aid, like we just said before the break, goes to Ukraine, goes back into their pockets so that everyone stays in power. It doesn't stop with the domestic Democrat party, right? It actually extends into many layers of the Republican establishment. And so that's why you get constantly voting in, like the vote for the continuing resolution. I mean, in essence, one argument people are saying, well, Trump supported it. Okay, well, let's back up. Didn't we just spend the last couple of years trying to shut down the government because it was weaponized against us, from my perspective, we should continue to defund the government so that it does not, like, let's reset, pause. You want to basically make things efficient, Elon Musk style, where he fires 80 to 90% of the waste at Twitter 1.0. The fastest way to do that is twofold. Number one, you shut down the government. Okay. Number two, you basically, as the director or secretary of whatever department, you put out a message to the entire force and say, hey, if you, based on the database that you guys created, if you got the COVID-19 injection that poisoned your, mutilated your DNA or created myocarditis problems for you, we're going to go ahead and tell you that you are not to enter work the following day. Those that decided were critical thinkers and decided not to take the jab, you're welcome to come back into work. So that would be about 2, maybe 3% of the workforce, right? Mm-hmm. If you were to believe those numbers. Now, for those people that are like, oh, wait, I have a fake vaccine passport. Well, sorry, bud. I can't trust you either, because that's the option that you took. So now you have to explain, if you want to get your job back, you have to write a sworn affidavit under oath explaining the circumstances upon which you accepted the DNA mutilation injection and which sources of information, both externally and internally, your bosses, etc., that forced and compelled and coerced you into taking that clot shot. That then can be used as the evidence to now completely fire with cause every single person in the institutions that were involved in the Nuremberg Code violating medical experiment promulgation and mutiny, essentially, of their organization. That's the fastest cleansing that could take place. Do they have the political will to do that? No, because most of these people, except for maybe RFK, Bobby Kennedy, actually stood their ground. And so they themselves are complicit in being duped by the FBI, Brian Auten, Jim Baker, Joe Pientka, etc., to go ahead and accept the DNA mutilation product. So they're on the hook, embarrassed to be asking this of everyone else. So
you're exactly right.
Be able to fix everything this administration because of those dynamics. But we need to start pushing so that in the next 4 years, we can get to that point.
You think Vance will be the on the ticket, the head of the ticket? Is that your gut?
Jab recipient, right?
Yeah, interesting. Any thoughts? We had a really good event at Mar-a-Lago, as I mentioned, where you honored all the military whistleblowers. I found that really stunning and fascinating, and it didn't get enough attention. We put it out on armedforces.press, but
thank you. Thank you for covering that. Absolutely.
It needs to get more attention. And that's exactly what you're talking about.
I think partially the reason why it isn't is because 3 of those 5 awardees were the ones that pushed back the most within the services, namely in the Air Force, Carolyn Rocco, Navy, Rob Green, and then the Army, Teresa Long. I mean, most Republicans don't want to touch this. They don't want to go there because they were complicit, either duped because they were just uncritical, and or they were complicit in making money hand over fist through fraud because they voted on the $2 trillion. Remember the COVID relief, aka the bribe, in order to steal the 2020 election to all Republicans and Democrats that were going to participate in that stolen election. Meanwhile, your boy Chris LaCivita wants to primary Thomas Massie because he was behind exposing that and trying to expose the January 6th pipe bomber, which ultimately, I argue, is going to lead to, Paul Ryan's fingerprints are going to be all over, at a minimum, the cover-up of January 6th Fedsurrection, and likely involvement through his communications with the Sergeant at Arms, Paul Irving.
So do you have time for one more segment, Ivan? Or
yeah, might as well.
How's your clock? Okay.
Yeah, let's do another segment. Let's talk about Virginia, because guess what? Elections never end in Virginia and New Jersey. And we just found out that the Rich Anderson, the current Republican Party of Virginia chairman, has now been appointed as the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force And so that seat is going to be vacant, and there's going to be a race coming up, and the governor, lieutenant governor, AG, and all the 100 House races here.
That's exactly. I wanted to talk elections because again, nobody's been arrested yet.
So we are in the factory in Kentucky. This is Alp World HQ, and we are at the end of the packing line. So I'm going to show you how it works. We have the card, throw it in there. There's a packing slip, and then you have the Alp. And 4, but that seems honestly like a lot. 3 now, but it's good. You just pack a punch that, for a normal nicotine brand, it'd be like 8. We think 3 is fine. Next one. Again, 4. I'm gonna throw 3 in just to keep it fair. Okay? There you go. So you can see you can get fast at this. And really it's just a matter of repetition. This is kind of the assembly line that Henry Ford devised so long ago.
Tucker stealing all the applicants.
So for all our listeners and Ivan's audience watching us today on X, this is Output. We're Monday through Friday, 10 to 12 Eastern. We're an intelligence briefing. We get down to the facts of the top stories of the day. Put us in your scan, cdm.press. We're going to be rebranding this show. It's going to be slightly different at the end of the month, but it'll still be 10 to 12 Eastern, Monday through Friday. Ivan, let's talk elections. We got the money laundering, the smurfing, the blank ballots in Florida, the mail-in ballot problems, the voter rolls. It's all still there. DeSantis is running it down in Florida. I mean, what the hell is going on? Nothing's happening. Nobody's been arrested yet. What's up?
Yeah, the only person that's been arrested and that's currently still in confinement is Tina Peters in Colorado. Yeah. Same person. I mean, she was the one that called out the illegal machines and what they were doing and try to stop Colorado from doing what they ultimately ended up doing, which is almost anyway. It was the same Jenna Griswold that criminalized Tina Peters. And then Jenna Griswold was the one that blocked Trump from getting on the ballot in Colorado until the Supreme Court stepped in.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I think when are folks going to wake up and the only time that they're going to stop is when we stop them. Okay. They're not going to stop because we think
we don't like it.
We will it. We write a strongly worded letter. No, they stop it when the appropriate authority, legally, morally, and ethically, in the most kinetic, lawful manner known, actually stops it. I said it. In the most legal, moral, and ethical manner, kinetically stops it. Examples: the live stream swatting raid that was done on Roger Stone, on Steve Bannon, on Peter Navarro, on Scott Perry, congressman in Pennsylvania, when they seized his devices, on Marjorie Taylor Greene on numerous occasions, right? I mean, where do I stop? I mean, we don't have enough time in the day for me to list every single example of what they did without lawful predicate. We have the lawful predicate. The evidence is there. Everyone knows it. You can't run and hide from it. They no longer control the media landscape. But elections? What do you want to talk about in Virginia? Chairman Rich Anderson, for a retired colonel, Air Force, has been appointed as the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force. And so now he's got to vacate because of Hatch Act, right? The RPV chair, Republican Party of Virginia. One person yesterday has announced he's a current state senator. I know him, good relationship with him. Mark Peake, but I'm not sure if he's the ideal person to be in that role.
Do you have somebody in mind?
I'm actually thinking if no one else that has the necessary, courage, skills. Like, let's face it, there's really only one person that pushed back that's a current former politician in Virginia that pushed back maximally against the pandemic and the COVID con. It was State Senator Amanda Chase. She's running for governor. I'm going to be backing her for governor because of that particular issue. I'm hoping that the Maha movement gets behind her as well once they see what she's been about, especially Nicole Shanahan, that crowd.
Well, bring her on the show. We'd love to interview her.
Also, you have, for the RPV chair, I think they're going to schedule it April 12th or 13th, so about a month out. I don't know. I might throw my name in the hat in the ring.
Well, we would love to support you in that effort. So you got to let us know when you make the call. And we're having Roger Stone on the show tomorrow. So I'm
Now,
sure.
I'm going to be making some phone calls. I mean, it's not. This just came about right a couple days ago. So because of Rich Anderson's move and becoming or being appointed as Assistant Secretary of the Air Force. So, I mean, obviously, I would be an outsider, very aggressive voice that the establishment would be uncomfortable with. But at the end of the day, it's really, I mean, do they want to continue same old, same old? I mean, I think there's really no downside if I were to run, because I would have a seat at the table during the next few weeks of campaigning and explaining the mindset and psyche of a segment of the country and the non-establishment of where we stand and what's important to us. And then hopefully that helps inform things moving forward. Because at the end of the day, I mean, if I know quite a few folks nationally, and they do have consequential influence and financial wealth that could be brought to the table. And so, again, but it's your non-traditional base. We'll see. Without disclosing too much, I mean, that's kind of
Well,
where I'm at, and I'll need to make some phone calls to see if some of these national figures would be interested in supporting if I were to run, and then some folks in Virginia. Actually, during this conversation, I just got a call from one of them because I texted him, said, "Hey, give me a call. I want to kind of get your opinion on But at the end of the day, if somebody else that's better than I am is running for that position, I would wholeheartedly back that individual. It's just that it's so new and fresh that there's only been one person out the gate, and I'm hearing that he's not even really he doesn't have a great desire to run for that particular position.
Well, I know you, and you'd be in it to win, but you're right. Just to have your voice in the race would be really good, because that's what needs to happen, and we'll help spread it, everywhere. So, last question, DOD, are you happy with what's going on there? I talked with several of the people down there that are now we're at Mar-a-Lago that are now in the government, or at least about to be. A lot of smoke, some fire with the firing of some of the generals, the JAGs. But what's your thoughts on DOD?
So, are we in a better position than we were? Full stop, 100%. I mean, there's no question, no equivocation to that.
Yeah.
Are we where I personally would like to see us? Not even close. We're like at the 1% marker, right? So, what are some of the things that let's do the positive? And I like to remind people, I voted 3 times for President Trump, okay? Without any hesitation. Primary, actually more than that, primary, general election. So that'd be 6 times, right?
Yeah.
So what's going on at the Department of Defense in terms of stopping DEI CRT? I would give it an A grade. But then what's an A plus look like? An A plus looks like all the DEI CRT institutions need to be pivoted, and there needs to be constitution training, right? To instill something that actually supports the oath of office, instead of saying rejecting something. Well, what are you going to put in its place? Well, you don't need to put things in its place, but you need to put things in place that are actually foundational, and that would be constitution training, right? That would be the A plus marker. And then obviously the appointment of Matthew Lohmeyer in a senior position, that's great. And then as far as the Afghan pullout is concerned, no one's been held to account yet. I mean, have you heard whether or not Milley and Austin were recalled to active duty and court-martialed and convicted of capital punishment for murder and treason? I haven't heard that yet.
No,
so that would be the A plus. Yeah. That would be the standard. Okay. We're not there yet. What else? And that doesn't even include Austin and Milley's involvement in destroying tens of thousands of service members, right? An apology is not enough. I don't even, because that might get you a D minus. All right. A D minus would look like what is going on right now: an apology and then an invitation for reinstatement. Guess what? Every single person all up the leadership chain, every single general, 100% of the flag officers and generals that are currently in were the ones that were participating as good little Nazis to jab everyone under their command. So how do we address that? Every single one of them must be relieved and criminally prosecuted for assault, battery, and forcing the illegal DOD jab mandate, emergency use authorized product. This is not going away. I mean, this administration wants to kind of dance around and like, oh yeah, we can do the CRT, DEI stuff. Yeah, we can go after him and call him out for this. But almost everyone was complicit in the illegal DOD jab mandate. So we're just going to increase our pressure. We're not going anywhere. The only way we stop is if you assassinate us. And guess what? In a game of chicken, I either win or you lose. So let's go.
Last question. Force structure wise, you and I have a soft background, but are we fighting the last war, the war on terror, rather than a peer-to-peer World War I, World War II drone, enhanced battlefield? I don't think we're anywhere close to being ready. What say you?
I think I think China might be ahead of Elon Musk but even if they aren't, once Elon Musk finishes his the droid robots underneath the Tesla brand, I think human warfare reaches a stage of obsolescence.
Interesting.
And that's, I would say, I mean, we're getting close. I'm not talking decades. I'm talking years, if not year, once that's deployed, right? And so what does that mean financially? What does that mean? I mean, every single system becomes obsolete. Every single system becomes obsolete. So then can you then remove 90% of the defense budget because you now have the capability through AI, big data, and AI agents in the form of like humanoids or any other, like whatever physical manifestation they look like. We get to the point where we reach, what is that called? Singularity, right?
Yeah.
And so really the person who controls the better algorithms and the energy to feed the AI, that's going to be the global dominating force. And right now, I think Elon Musk is in the pole position with
So maybe
his
that
assets.
was the agenda behind climate change, to destroy our whole energy grid so that we can't be in the lead in that sector. Ivan, thanks. Anything else you want to get out? We'll have you back. I really enjoyed having you.
Yeah, just to kind of caveat everything, everyone gets all concerned at my rhetoric. I'm always like, my rhetoric is the most benign diplomatic rhetoric that I can exhort. And it's always presenting the most legal, moral, and ethical, unconventional, with the most political courage path that I can think of.
Well, I've known you for a long time and you haven't deviated from that. So thank you for coming on. We'll have you back, and welcome back to Output. Take care.